It's kind of wild to think back to when COVID first hit, right? All the fear, the lockdowns, those really specific, scary symptoms. Well, here we are 5 years later. The virus is definitely still around, but getting it, that's a whole different story now. So what does COVID actually feel like in 2025? Let's take a look.
Well, right off the bat, Dr. Tushar Tayal gives us the short answer. It's just milder. A lot milder. He says it now resembles a cold, with way less drastic symptoms. And honestly, that really nails the massive shift we've all seen. So let's start with right now. If you were to catch COVID today, what should you actually expect to feel like?
Pretty much everyone agrees on this. For most of us, those early days of worrying about severe breathing problems and ending up in the hospital are largely over. What's left feels, well, a lot more familiar. Think of a really bad cold or a rough case of the flu you might get in winter.
But that brings up a huge question, doesn't it? How on earth did a virus that literally shut down the entire world become, well, so ordinary? The answer is pretty fascinating, and it's all on the journey it's taken over the last 5 years.
So let's do a little time traveling. We're going to rewind the clock and see exactly how COVID symptoms have changed from the very beginning.
You can really see the story unfold on this timeline. Back in 2020, it was all about fever, a dry cough, and that really strange loss of taste and smell. Then 2021 brought the Delta variant, which was super dangerous because of that severe oxygen deficiency. But 2022, that was the big turning point. Omicron showed up, and suddenly, everything shifted to feel more like a cold. Sore throat, running nose. And ever since then, it's just stayed on that milder track.
Now, this didn't just happen by accident. This whole transformation, this taming of the virus, happened for a couple of very specific reasons.
It was really a two-pronged attack. First, we had mass vaccinations, which basically gave our immune systems a training manual on how to fight this thing. And second, all those waves of infections, as tough as they were, ended up building this huge wall of natural immunity in the population. It was that 1-2 punch that really did the trick.
And this led to a super interesting trade-off from the virus's point of view. See, to survive, it had to change. It got way better at infecting people and dodging our immune defenses. But in the process, it seems to have given up its ability to make most of us severely, life-threateningly sick.
And hey, if you need just one number to prove how much has changed, this is it. The mortality rate has dropped to less than 1%. That is absolutely stunning, and it really shows how much less dangerous the virus has become for most people compared to where we started.
Okay, so with all that history covered, let's come back to 2025. What are the specific strains of the virus that are going around right now?
So in 2025, we're mostly dealing with two big ones, Stratus and Nimbus. Stratus is the newer one, and it can give you this really distinct hoarseness, like you've been shouting all night. And then there's Nimbus, which got famous for a sore throat so awful, people were calling it a razor blade throat. It just goes to show you, even though it's milder overall, each new variant can still bring its own nasty little surprises.
So, if we put it all together, if you get COVID in 2025, you're probably looking at a sore throat, a cough, and a runny nose. You know, the classics. Fever, feeling wiped out, and headaches are also on the table. And what about that famous loss of taste and smell? Well, it can still pop up, but it's way, way less common than it used to be.
So where does that leave us? Let's pull back and look at the big picture of what living with COVID is really like in this new normal. This is really the bottom line. On the one hand, you've got great news. The virus is milder, and hospitalizations have plummeted. But on the other hand, you have the reality check. It's incredibly contagious, people in vulnerable groups are still at risk, and we can't forget about long COVID, with symptoms that can stick around for years.
And that's the big question we're left with, isn't it? We've done a pretty good job of taming that initial, scary sickness, but as we learn more and more about the long-term effects, it really makes you wonder, even if COVID just feels like a cold now, has it truly become harmless? That's definitely something to think about.